Welcome to Real, Brave, and Unstoppable. Here, you'll hear stories and inspiration about showing up in the world authentically and having the courage to create the life you want. I'm your host, Kortney Rivard. I'm a mom, recovering engineer, lover of the outdoors, and professional life coach. I help smart women just like you live happier lives full of purpose and joy by empowering them to love who they are, get unstuck, and take action toward creating the life they dream of. In other words, I help them be real, brave, and unstoppable. It is possible, and you can do it too. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome back to Real, Brave, and Unstoppable for episode number 81. I hope everyone's doing well. The weather here is crazy. It's like 35 degrees today, and we've had like 70-degree weather, so it's really weird. So I'm just going to dive in today. I don't have really a lot of exciting other things to share, but today on the show, I'm going to talk about the topic of permission. What? BS. Giving yourself permission. I have a little story to kind of talk about this. When my ex and I divorced, and if you don't know the story, just go back and listen to episode 1 and you'll get the rundown. But I was in a pretty bad spot. I was in like super deep victim mode for quite a while. And if I'm being really honest with myself, I hung on to a big piece of that story until actually fairly recently. And actually, I still have to work to let go of it because there are like triggers that, bring it back to me. So let me explain. My ex is a lawyer and he makes a lot of money, and I don't make anywhere near that kind of money. And while I get spousal support, I still can't afford the things he can. He's always taking big vacations, and he and his partner have a really nice house. And this is all really hard for me because it really and truly feels like he just plucked me out of his life and put someone else in there. So his partner is essentially living the life I had. And, of course, that life was not perfect. No life is perfect, but, it was a comfortable life and it was a nice life. But, about 6 months ago, I really thought I had forgiven him and I really had healed all of that. But about 6 months ago, I realized that I was really hanging on to the story that I gave up my career to be a mom. And if I had really considered that this kind of a thing could happen to me, I would have never done that. So I made him the villain in it that, look what happened to me. I left my career and then to be a mom, and then look what happened. He's terrible. He ruined my life. It's not fair. Like I could go on and on. So obviously, that's not really a helpful story. And one of my coaches sort of put it out there that I was actually getting a lot from being able to leave my career. Like it was something that was like almost, she challenged me to look at it like, how did that happen for me? And she was actually really right. I really wouldn't have traded having that time with my kids. And I always said that. It was part of my path, and this experience allowed me to leave a career that I didn't love, like having kids and having a husband who was a lawyer that made good money. It allowed me to leave a career that I didn't love and for me to be there to focus on my family. So while the decision ended up hurting me in some ways, just because I had been out of a career for like 12 years-ish, and so like when the divorce happened, I'd been out for a long time. To go back to a career like engineering after 12 years, it's not super easy, right? So, and then B, I didn't really want to go to work at a corporate cubicle job. And that was my choice, right? That was totally my choice. But, the truth is that, we ended up making that decision together when we had our first child. And the truth is that I didn't love what I was doing at the time. I didn't really want to go back to that. And I don't really know exactly why. Now that I'm looking back, there are a lot of reasons I think that was, but there's a different episode for that. But I found myself talking about my career later in life as if I loved it, and it was this terrible thing that I had to leave it. So it's really vulnerable to share this story, but all of us, sometimes shift facts to make them fit our story without really realizing it. And I found that's what I was doing. So, why was I hanging on to that story? I'm getting to how this relates to permission soon, I promise. So, to look at the cost and benefit of the story was actually costing me that I was staying stuck in the place of blame and oh, poor me victim mode. It was costing me feeling empowered to create my own amazing life. And it was also costing me just freedom from having the resentment towards him and his partner for having this life. But there was also a hidden benefit. There always is a hidden benefit that the story that I was hanging on to, it made me right. It made my ex the villain, and it made me this poor victim that was horribly wronged. And I could always be right in shifting blame onto him with that story. So why did I keep it though? Because it was really because I never gave myself permission to let it go. I never gave myself permission to have made a choice that later made things difficult for me, if that makes sense. Unconsciously, I guess I thought I needed that story. I didn't give myself permission to acknowledge that I had made a choice with my ex, and I didn't give myself permission to fully forgive him either. Oof, that's a lot, right? So today I want to talk about this and why it's so important to give ourselves permission, and how when we don't, we're held back in so many ways. We don't grow when we don't give ourselves permission, and we don't get off of that proverbial hamster wheel. So today in this episode, I want you to take away a few things. First of all, if you're feeling stuck because you're not giving yourself permission for the things you need to give yourself permission for. And I want you to start thinking about where you need to give yourself permission to move yourself forward. Second, not giving yourself permission comes from things you believe about yourself and is furthered by self-doubt. And it's all rooted in fear. So we're going to get into that too. But to just remember that you have the ability to decide to give yourself permission, because you not giving yourself permission is all coming from stuff you think is true, but is not really true. And then third, I want to give you some ways that you can work on giving yourself permission. So those are the three things I want you to take away from today's episode. So let's get to it and dive right in. All right. So first of all, we're conditioned to ask for permission, right? Think about it. From the time we're little, we have to ask for, can I have a snack? Or can I get up and go to the bathroom? Ask to go to a friend's house, ask for a raise, ask for vacation. And I mean, this all makes sense, right? Just the way things are. But the point is, we get in a habit of having to ask others for permission. We're asking other authority figures for permission. And we just get that ingrained in us. That's what we do, right? We forget that we are sovereign human beings and we have the ability to decide that for ourselves now that we're adults, right? Right. So it's kind of new in a way. And we're really just wanting someone to give us the green light to go ahead and get started. But we could be giving ourselves the green light. We just don't. So you might be wondering what kinds of things I'm talking about. There is a really long list of possibilities, and I'm going to go through a whole bunch of them with you because, unless you're familiar with this concept of giving yourself permission, you might not realize some of the things that are really simple that you're not letting yourself have or do. And I'm just going to go through this list. It's long, but the first one is the permission to be happy. Some people have an I don't deserve to be happy story or belief, so they self-sabotage their happiness. And it's okay to be super happy about something. Or let's say that you're really happy, but someone just went through a loss. You can be empathetic and compassionate and be there for that person in their loss while you're still happy. It's okay. So you can give yourself permission to do that, to be happy, to be wrong. I can relate to this one a lot. And it's actually affected my ability to speak up. It's not to be wrong. It's bad to be wrong. Or I don't have this one, but I know people who do, is the permission to be loud or too much. If you have someone that says you're too much and you have that story about yourself, that's who you are. You need to find new people. You need to find new people. You are here on this planet to be who you're meant to be. And if you're loud and too much, own that. Own that. That's who you are. Permission to live the life you want to live or to dream big. I can't tell you how many people I work with that I have. One of the first things we do is do an exercise where they're asked to create their, 5 to 10 year vision. And it's just dream big. It doesn't matter if it's realistic or not, just put it down. And a lot of people have a hard time with that. So I'm having to include in the instructions, the first thing we're going to do is give yourself permission to dream big. Permission to be yourself, even when it's hard or uncomfortable for other people. To stand up for what you believe in, even if it goes against what someone else does. And this is a big one that I think everyone can relate to is give yourself the permission to rest or recharge or to be lazy. That's something I have a hard time with. To practice self-care or to have me time. The permission to take a vacation. A lot of times when people get into a job where they're really like they work a lot or they're really responsible for a lot and there's not a lot of backfill for their position, they feel guilty taking a vacation. But give yourself permission. You earned that vacation, right? So give yourself permission to take vacation or just to take a break. Permission to watch TV, Netflix binge, eat dessert. Permission to walk away from something that's not serving you. Sometimes that's really hard. Permission to let go or accept what is, surrender to what is. I had a situation like that when my ex and I split up. I had such a hard time letting go of what I thought to be a normal, quote unquote, family. And it took me a long time to really let go of that. And I think, what it really comes down to is getting comfortable with letting go of that. And that's permission, really. You're giving yourself permission to actually just let it float away. And what comes, comes. Permission to do what's best for you just because it's best for you. You don't need an explanation just because it's best. To let go of the way you thought your life should go. It's kind of like what I said with the family. We all have, I know I did. I had this idea of what my life was going to look like. And then when I got divorced, that all went poof. And even now, I still have times where I look at where I thought I would be or where sometimes I get pulled into where I think I should be. And so it's permission to let go of that and to say, you know what, this is how I'm doing it. It's fine. This is how I'm doing it. Permission to love who you are. That's hard for a lot of people. And really also along with that is to love and accept your body. I talk to a lot of women about this. There are so many of us who would rather torture themselves with counting calories, numbers on the scale, trying to lose weight than actually doing the work of accepting and loving our bodies first. People get it mixed up. Acceptance does not mean resignation, like you don't care, like you're just letting yourself go. It's not the same thing. You can accept what is in this moment and still want to be, healthier or something. So you give yourself permission to love and accept that body of yours, and the health part comes with it. You don't have to resign yourself to just being the same forever. It just means that, give yourself permission to be a little more compassionate and kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to trust your intuition. Oh my gosh, this one, I've come so far in this in the last year. How often do you get in your head and talk yourself out of what your gut is saying? Oh my gosh, like I know there have been many times in my life where I've had a gut feel and then I've just talked myself out of it because, I justify or rationalize or whatever it is. So the permission to actually listen to that little voice or that gut feel that says, do this, not that. The permission to feel joy. If you've ever read the part in one of Brene Brown's books, I forget which one it is. I feel like it's Rising Strong, but I'm not sure. About foreboding joy. It's when we're hesitant to let ourselves feel joy because we're afraid it won't last, basically. So give yourself permission to really feel into those joyful moments. The permission to simplify your life. This one is hard for a lot of people too, especially in today's world where, we're so focused on being things and doing things and having things. So, if your life feels really complicated and you really crave something simpler, I'm one of those people. I love simplifying things, but it took me a while to get there because I always felt like I had to measure up. And so if you desire a simpler life, but the people all around you have very like lavish lifestyles, even though that's not really who you are, you're afraid of being judged. So you kind of stay in that. You give yourself permission to do what's best for you in that case. Give yourself permission to give yourself grace and others grace. You don't need to be so hard on yourself, and you can give others a little compassion too. Give yourself the permission to be vulnerable. Like this one can really take some intentionality because it is really scary. You might also need to give yourself permission to be afraid with this one because, like I said, being vulnerable is scary. So give yourself the permission to be afraid and do it anyway, because vulnerability is how we create true connection. So it's super important. Give yourself the permission to play and have fun and be silly and be creative. Those are things that I think when we grow up, we don't do nearly enough of. Give yourself permission to dance like no one's watching. Permission to remove toxic people from your life. Oh, that is such a big one. You don't have to be mean about it either, but you don't have to have every single person that, comes into your world. You don't have to be afraid to set boundaries and just, not be with those people because sometimes they really, really drain your energy. And I know, I'm sure everyone has someone like that where they really drain your energy. And have you ever said, well, they're fine, but I have to really limit, I can only take so much of them. Like that's okay. Give yourself permission to feel that way. Like it's okay if I don't want to spend a lot of time with them. The permission to make mistakes. This kind of goes along with being wrong, but making mistakes, making mistakes and failure are not problems. They're actually how you learn and how you grow. Give yourself the permission to say yes to what you want and no to what you don't want. Very important too. Or also the permission to ask for what you want, to ask. And also, along with that, I just thought of this one too, is the permission to receive. So many of us have a hard time receiving, including myself. So that's one thing, to give yourself permission to receive. And that's a beautiful thing. The world it's a flow of energy, giving and receiving. So you have to be able to do both. The permission to be imperfect, and we're all imperfect. So you might as well give yourself the permission because you are anyway, right? The permission to start over or to pivot when you don't like the direction you're going. There, I used that favorite pivot word from COVID, right? I think we're all so over that word. The permission to make more money or to have a lot of money or to not care how much money you make. The permission to want things. That's okay. Permission to try something new. Or here's a big one, kind of related to forgiveness too, but to let go of the past, forgive others and yourself. The permission to get out of victim mode and stop blaming. That was kind of the story I told you at the beginning of the episode, right? Permission to be inadequate. Yeah, you're not going to be great at everything you do, right? So just give yourself the permission to just do something and not have to be great at it. It's fine. Permission to enjoy life. Permission to give yourself time to heal. So like permission to have patience with that. Or also to rediscover who you are. A lot of women that I work with that are going through a tough time in life, it's kind of like you go out through that phase where you feel lost and you don't really know who you are. And so it's like you're not going to find it in like a day. And I should rephrase that. You're not going to rediscover or reconnect with yourself in like a day. So you need patience. You need to give yourself permission to be patient and the permission to not have it figured out right away. The permission to just take the next right step. Permission to meet new people, do something unconventional, to be super confident. Also, permission to be unhappy, but still want to do something about it, to feel crappy sometimes, to feel all the feels, right? Angry, jealous, unsure, but also joyful and peaceful and, all those things. Permission to spend money. I know sometimes when you're in a relationship or a marriage and, you feel guilty buying something for yourself because what if your partner gets mad or something like that? But, everybody deserves to splurge on themselves a little bit sometimes. It's kind of a little bit of self-care. Permission to succeed. This is actually kind of a really sneaky one. I've found that one come up for me very, very sneakily, like I said. It's not something, you think, what do you mean, like to succeed? Everyone wants to succeed. But it's like I said, super sneaky. If you have questions about it, email me. We'll talk. Let's see. Also, permission to not know something, not know the answer. Kind of like, permission to be wrong. But, to say, I don't know. I don't know. Or I don't know. I'll get back to you. I'll look into that and I'll get back to you. Another one, permission to love. That one's hard sometimes. Or maybe if you're divorced, like the permission to date again, like to risk that. And then finally, permission to trust others and know that you'll have your own back. So that's a big list. There's a lot of things, right? So I wanted to give you that many examples just because there are so many things and there are more too. So, you can make your own list. Actually, I would recommend that. Like if you didn't need permission for anything, like what would you do? It's kind of fun to think about. But not giving yourself permission for things will keep you stuck. It'll keep you from moving forward, from growing. You'll stay stuck in your comfort zone. And then you'll never learn to expand what's possible for you. And that's what life's about. It's about growing and expanding. And if you don't give yourself permission to be wrong or to be creative, or to speak what's on your mind, you won't get out there or try new things. So you will miss out on sharing what you have to offer, and others will miss out on that too. If you've been told, for example, like you're too much or you're too loud and you don't give yourself permission to be that, you're going to live your life dimming who you are, and that comes at a huge cost. Hiding who you are does not feel good, and it prevents you from cultivating true connection in your life. And that's one of the things as humans that we crave the most. If you don't give yourself permission to dream, you're going to just play small your whole life and always wonder, well, what if I did that? If you don't give yourself permission to stand up for what you believe in, you're out of integrity with yourself. And you'll also rob yourself of the opportunity to help facilitate real change in the world. If you don't give yourself permission to rest, to recharge, or relax, you'll run yourself ragged and you'll suffer from stress, burnout, and exhaustion. No fun. So basically, you'll just stay stuck wherever you are. You'll never move out of your comfort zone, and your life will feel like you're stuck on the hamster wheel. Same old, same old. When you don't give yourself permission, this really all boils down to being who you really are. You're not going to be able to live the life you truly desire, the life that lights you up and brings you joy. You'll essentially be living the life that everyone else thinks you should live, or that you think everyone else thinks you should live. And your self-confidence, your self-concept, and your self-esteem they'll all suffer. Giving yourself permission to do something opens up space for a new possibility to exist. And it opens up room for you to grow into something bigger. It allows you to stretch. It's how you get off the hamster wheel I keep talking about. You're here to be you, and you can't do that if you're always asking for permission for everything. You need to learn how to give yourself the green light to live for the things that you love. It's shifting your energy from waiting for the go-ahead to empowering yourself to live your life, empowering yourself to give yourself the go-ahead. So you're probably wondering, yeah, but how do I do this, Kortney? I have a hard time giving myself permission to do so many things that you listed off. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. As with any process, you need to be very compassionate and understanding with yourself. Lots of love to yourself, because this doesn't happen overnight. It's building a muscle, right? As with any process, you will want to give yourself lots of compassion and understanding, lots of love to yourself, the same way that you give other people compassion, understanding, and encouragement when they're asking for permission, right? Yes. And this is a process that you're learning. So it's important to build the muscle of permission, which means you want to start with lighter weight and more reps. Start small, start easy, and practice the small, easy things frequently. You might start with things like giving yourself permission to watch a TV show when it's what you really want to do, even though your mind is telling you how bad or how lazy or how unproductive that is. Or you could even start with giving yourself permission to have dessert when normally you'd avoid that for, calorie reasons or watching your weight. When you practice with the small things, you will build trust with yourself that it's okay to give yourself permission. The world won't end and you won't die. Because that's actually what your brain thinks or wants you to think. The next thing is going to involve a little bit of letting go, which can feel hard. So you have to decide to let go. And then you have to choose to practice letting go and accepting what is at every opportunity that you have. You just have to decide that you're going to practice it. You're going to decide that you're going to choose to let go. And also, you have to give yourself permission to not be perfect here, because you won't be. You're just building the muscle. Letting go of needing the approval of others is really important too. And you're going to need to give yourself permission for this too. The permission to let go of needing approval or external validation. You will also want to let go of the way that you think things are supposed to be, quote unquote, for you. You want to carve your own path, the path that you decide is most authentic to you. Give yourself permission to feel your feelings. You're going to have feelings come up in the process of allowing yourself things that you haven't allowed yourself before, like guilt, worry, anxiety. And it's way easier if you just let yourself feel those feelings rather than resist them. The feelings will just feel worse and they'll last longer the more that you resist them. So give yourself permission to sit with them and be with them. Pay attention to your self-worth. Where are you at with that? Your ability to give your permission is linked to your self-worth and your self-concept. So work on loving yourself and affirming to yourself that you are enough, exactly as you are, which again, that's permission to love yourself and the permission to believe you're enough. Also, some things that you can do to tap into your self-worth and really dig into that are to journal or meditate. You deserve to have the permission to live the life that you're here to live. Like, you deserve that. So tap into that self-worth however you can. Other things on a more practical level are really watch when you find yourself saying, I have to or I should. You get to choose. You don't have to do anything. My PE teacher and volleyball coach in high school used to always say, the only thing you have to do is die. True, right? It's kind of a weird thing, but it's really true. Like, you have the ability to decide really anything except the day that you die. So remember that if you find yourself saying, I have to or I should do this, like, you don't have to do anything. You get to decide what you want to do. What you don't want to do, you get to choose. So you give yourself permission to do or to not do. Another thing that can help you practice with smaller things is to give yourself permission to celebrate your small wins. I work on this with my clients all the time. We usually open up our calls with celebrations, small wins, and sometimes I even have my clients take or keep a list of little things, or the big things or the little things, no matter how small. And it's helpful because our brain doesn't normally go to acknowledge the little things that are done well, or even the big things for that matter. Our brain always wants to go to what's wrong. So give yourself permission to really celebrate those little things. I mean, you found a great parking spot at Costco, like, hooray, because that's not easy to do. Or, did you give yourself permission to not count calories when normally you've just been totally obsessed with it? Like, celebrate that. That's big. It might not seem big, but it is. And I briefly mentioned this before, but what would your life be like if you gave yourself permission to just be yourself in life? Like, to be wrong, to be happy or sad, to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's hard, and all the things on the list I covered at the beginning of this episode. What would you do if you didn't have to ask for permission for anything? What would be possible for you? Just ponder that. And finally, one thing that can be fun Many years ago, my mom and I took a course that Oprah and Brene Brown were jointly offering, and it was related to her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. The course had a creative aspect to it, which was really fun. My mom is an artist, so that was right up her alley, but we did it together, and each chapter had an art journaling assignment. And at the beginning of the course, the assignment was to create actual permission slips and put them in our journal for ourselves, because creativity can actually bring up a lot of fear and perfectionism and worry that what you're doing isn't good enough. I actually did an art journaling masterclass with my mom last year, and the idea behind it was perfectionism and just pay attention when you're faced with a blank page, how do you feel and what comes up for you. So this was similar. It was permission slips to actually, for me, I think I probably used something like, I'm giving myself permission to play, or, permission to mess up, or just even the permission to be creative, just to try doing the art stuff, even if I didn't think I'd be good at it, that kind of thing. So for the things that you need permission for, or that you have a hard time giving yourself permission for, create an actual permission slip for yourself and keep it somewhere you can see it. That's kind of fun. So giving yourself permission is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Doing that is going to help you move forward in your life rather than stay stuck. You stop playing small and start swinging for the fences. Spend some time looking at the places in your life where you're not giving yourself permission. What do you think you're afraid of in these cases? And what are some ways that you can work on giving yourself permission? So before I go, I can help you do this work of getting over your fears so you can give yourself the green light to go ahead and grow. I can help you take that action even when it's hard, because it is hard. And we all have blind spots, so sometimes it's really hard to see where you're getting stuck. And I do that for a living, and I can help you. So if you want to know how, or if you want to learn more, head on over to kortneyrivard.com/let's-talk to schedule a free consult. I would love to chat with you. Okay, friends, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Real, Brave, and Unstoppable. As always, I appreciate you, and I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real, Brave, and Unstoppable. If you'd like to learn more about creating an authentic life that's true to who you are, visit kortneyrivard.com/lovelife to download your free guide on how to build your vision and create a life that you love. You'll be so glad you did. I'll see you next time.